Hi guys, it's Shelly Mac here. So this week I decided to do something just a little bit different. I asked you to submit any questions you might have, be it about food or fitness or fun or family or anything related, and I thought I'd just compile all the questions and put them together in just this little fun Q&A. So you may have submitted a question, you might not have, that's absolutely fine, but all the questions that were asked were absolutely brilliant, and I think they're things that we can all learn a lot from. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so first question, a really great question that came in from one of my ladies, and I'm going to read it. It says, what sort of stretching should you be doing if you're doing a mixture of workouts and running? How often and for what length of time? She also said, I'm used to doing my stretches at the start and end of training and workouts in classes, but not on my own. Okay, so I know I probably should sit here and say you should stretch for 20 minutes every single day, yada yada yada, but I'm actually not even really going to talk about the stretches themselves. So if you are struggling with the act of doing your stretches at the end of a workout, if you're kind of like, as you said, you finish a workout and mentally you're just like, I'm done, then what you need to focus on is the habit of adding in stretches at the end of your run or at the end of your workout. So your habits are the small little manageable actions that you do that lead you towards your ultimate goal. So your goal is regularly stretching, but we want to focus on those small little actions that actually lead you to that ultimate goal. So say for example, if you go for a run, if you're running from your home and you finish off literally back at the door, and you headway in, and you've just decided, I'm just going to bother stretching. What we need to fit in here is a small little action that will begin the habit of adding in those stretches regularly. I can't really say that properly. Consistently. So with any new habit that we do, we want to make it so that it's no longer than 2 minutes until it becomes an established habit, an established routine. So if we're going to use the example of going for a run, when you finish your run, as you're stood at your door, you can stack the habit of, before I go in the door, I must do 2 minutes of stretching. And let's not even talk about what stretches you need to do. Just focus on the habit of doing 2 minutes of stretching. Or if it's a pillow and wet day, say, okay, whenever I go into the house, there's always somebody there, I always have a chit chat. You cannot talk to anybody in the house until you have your 2 minutes of stretching done. Or it might be a case that you go straight in, you have a shower. Before your shower, 2 minutes of stretching. So whatever you want to do, you stack it with something that you already do. So if you have to go in the door to your house, you have to stretch beforehand. So it's not about the actual stretches, they will come with time, but the physical habit of including them as part of your session. That is what is going to be the most important thing. So yeah, after that then you can look into stretching for a little bit longer, stretching on your off days as such, and really digging deep into what types of stretches, but focus first and foremost on the habit of adding in stretching. Okay, 2 minutes, and add it to something that you already do, so you know you're always going to get it done. Okay, so next question, really good question that came in from one of our ladies. She said, I'm conscious of my bone health since I'm now in my 40s. I know all types of exercises good for bone health, but would you have a top 5 or top 10 exercises for good bone health and strength? So, excellent question, and a really good topic for everybody of all ages and all genders, but very kind of even more so for women. And that is because when women reach the age of menopause or postmenopause, due to hormone changes, our bone density can decrease. So, or as well, if there is a history of things like osteopenia or osteoporosis in the family, it's always something to be just conscious of and just be aware of. And like I said, this is for people of all ages. So if you're watching this in your 20s going, I do not have to worry about this. No, you don't have to worry about it, but it's something to be aware of and be conscious of. So when it comes to bone health or bone density, the best types of exercises you can do is any kind of weight bearing or resistance training exercises. So weight bearing can be something like walking, which is a low impact weight bearing exercise, running, which is a higher impact weight bearing exercise. Your resistance training then is, they describe resistance training as anything that moves your body against gravity while remaining upright. So there are some exceptions. So when you're thinking of resistance training, think of things like squats, lunges, deadlifts, weight training with your kettlebells or your dumbbells, anything that adds resistance to the body. Exercises that are great in their own form, but don't necessarily add to bone health or bone density in the same way, would be things like swimming, because it's non-weight bearing, or even things like cycling, because you are not putting full weight through the body. They are, like I said, though, fantastic exercises in their own rights. But when we are talking specifically about bone density and bone health, you're looking at your resistance training or weight-bearing activities. So in opposed to, I suppose, a top 5 or top 10, what I would say is any kind of resistance training where you're using dumbbells, kettlebells, or your own body weight. So you think about doing a squat, you don't even need to add in weights, and that is a weight-bearing activity, and it's a resistance training form of activity. The better exercise, I suppose, if you're going along a continuum, when you have the likes of walking, really, really good. But as you get higher impact, the likes of running or jumping, they're almost the best forms. They are the best forms for increasing bone density or improving bone density. So I hope that helps. Okay, guys, getting into these a little bit more. So next question, absolutely fantastic question coming up. Any suggestion how to not feel guilty for not doing or finishing a session when feeling a bit injured or under the weather? So I thought this was a brilliant question because this question I'm kind of going to have two kind of aspects to it. The first one is focusing on the mindset of feeling guilty, and the second aspect is actually on rest and recovery. So going towards the mindset aspect first. So when we talk about feeling guilty about missing a session, we really need to ask ourselves why. Why do we feel guilty? What do we feel we're going to miss by not finishing a session or not doing a particular session? Is it because you made a plan at the start of the week and you said you were going to do it, hell or high water? Is it for another reason? This I can't answer, obviously, for the lovely person who asked this. But it is important to really look internally and see why that guilt is there. And it's going to be about shifting our mindset from feeling guilty for not doing something to feeling responsible and proactive for actually not doing something. So the reason if you are feeling under the weather or injured, that is literally your body screaming at you that something is wrong. And we can either choose to ignore it by doing a session, or we can choose to actually listen to it and figure out what's wrong and figure out how we can actually fix it. So if you are feeling regularly, we'll all have stages where we feel under the weather or feeling injured for a particular reason. But if it's a consistent thing, or if it's something we're not listening to, then we need to kind of change our tact a little bit. So if your body is injured or sick, it means your immune system is down and your body is screaming out for some recovery. We shy away from recovery a lot because, I don't know, it's a little bit of a mindset of like, oh, a recovery day is like a lazy day, a day off, oh, I should be doing something. But really, when we're training and when we're training regularly, our recovery days are equally as important as our training days. We do not get better and we do not get stronger and we do not get faster or fitter on the days that we train. We get better on the days that we recover. So you need your training, which is your stressor. Training stresses the body, and I had done a little article last week on the importance of finding your stress sweet spot. So exercise is a stressor, and we do need that stressor to kind of push us out of our comfort zone to get the body to improve. But if we reach a certain point and we continue to stress the body beyond what the body is capable for at that particular time, everything starts to decline. So our performance will start to decline, and your body's ability to recover declines. So stress plus good recovery equals great benefits. Stress plus no recovery means a downward spiral. So if your body is under pressure, you need to look at things like any other stresses in your life. So exercise is one stress. We have loads of different stresses, and they actually are all accumulative. They all come together. So you could have stress from family, from work, mental stress, physical stress. They all add in together and they all create stressors in the body. So you might not feel that you're pushing yourself really hard in training, but if you have a load of other stressors as well, they all add together and you still need to recover from them. So don't be afraid to take a step back. The second thing to look at would be your sleep. So if you're not getting enough sleep, it can affect your recovery, stress sleep, and then your food intake. So when you are training, and that this is whether you're a professional athlete or for a lot of you, you're doing 5 sessions a week, you're a recreational athlete. So you've got a name. So you need to be treating your body with the correct food and fuel in order to perform at your best. But also that food and that fuel is there to build your immune system and to help your body to recover after every session. So ensuring that you've got enough energy from things like carbohydrates, that you've got enough protein in your body to help repair your muscles after every session, and all those things as well as your good fats all help to build your immune system as well. So everything is really, really important. So kind of taking it back to the question, which is how do you stop feeling guilty if you don't finish a session, or you know when you're feeling ill or injured? Just think, you kind of have like 2 questions. They're like, do I feel guilty for doing this session and knowing that it's actually going to have another impact on tomorrow's session and the day after and the day after, because you're not recovering, so your performance and your injuries and illness will not get better. Or if you take the day off, maybe 2 days, maybe even 3 days, you will notice going back to your next session that you are absolutely pumped and you're ready for road. Recovery does not make you weaker. Recovery makes you stronger. And that's whether you're feeling ill or injured or just taking your recovery days in between any kind of sessions, whatever you're doing. They make you stronger. And don't ever underestimate the importance of them, and don't ever feel guilty for it, because we all need them, everybody needs them, and without them we will not actually get better. So rather than feeling guilty, go, yay, do you know what, my body doesn't feel great. That's a sign, it's telling me that I need to slow down or I need to stop. Perfect, because I know I'm going to come back in a few days and be absolutely ready for road again. Hope that helps. Okay, so next question, nice and short and sweet. It says, what is your opinion on protein shakes? So first and foremost, when it comes to anything that's kind of a supplement or an add-on, I would always encourage people to take a look at their entire current daily nutrition intake and work with that first and foremost to make sure that they are taking on board enough carbohydrates, proteins and fats, literally from the food that you eat. And going for really, really good wholesome food is always going to be first and foremost on my list. When it comes to protein, protein would be things like lean meat, chicken, turkey, fish, eggs, egg whites, things like cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, all really, really, really good forms of protein. Tofu as well, if you're tofu, and things like kidney beans and things like that if you're vegetarian as well. Really, really, really good forms of protein. So they would always be our first protocol in making sure that you're getting enough of those kind of things in your daily diet. However, I think protein shakes and protein powders can play a really, really good role when necessary. So me personally, I don't currently take them. I would have taken them quite a lot about 10 plus years ago. Not quite a lot, but I would have had a protein shake after training. That's because I hated cooking. Oops, sorry. Anyway, back on track. But it is actually something that I'm thinking of bringing back into my daily needs soon enough. So where I think that they're really, really convenient and really handy is that if you are training quite a lot and you find you actually just can't get your protein needs in, they're also really, really handy. Like say, for example, if you kind of know you're like, oh, I need to eat a little bit more meat, or I need to eat a few more eggs, but I'm just full. I just kind of can't really fit into my food for the day. Then that's where protein shakes can be really, really handy as well. But they're also really great because they're convenient to take on the run. So that's where I'm going to be using them in a few weeks. So at the moment we're all at home, which is great. So we're not in a mad dash rush anywhere. So when we do the morning sessions, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning session, I have a breakfast beforehand. I always have porridge beforehand for energy. And afterwards then I always have something like eggs and bagel and spinach and something like that. Where I know I get caught is when we go back to real life and school has started again, because I literally just have time to come down the stairs, send out the class, download that and send it out, and have a shower and go. So I'm going to piling the kids into the car and doing the school run. So I generally lose my second breakfast. So that's where I'm going to add in a protein shake, just so I can ensure that I am getting that recovery that's needed after a session and those calories that are needed after a session when I'm on the run. So that's where I think protein shakes have a really, really good part to play as well. Okay, so we're flying through, we're kind of flying through the questions. I hope you're still with me. The next one, really excellent question. It is actually a question that just came in, not necessarily by this, but I thought it'd be great to add it in here. So I think it'd be very beneficial to hear about. So this lady, this lovely, lovely mama, asked me, what are the best core sessions or core exercises that I could advise? And she said, when you were saying engage the core muscles, I couldn't find any. Okay. So our core muscles, I am mad about our core muscles. And if you have ever done a Pilates session with me, you'll know that we talk about them quite a lot. So our core muscles, just to go through what they are, they consist of our pelvic floor muscles, which are like a hammock muscle. They're the muscles that would stop you going to the bathroom. And then we also have a corset muscle that wraps around your waist. It's called the transverse abdominis. It's literally like a hammock that goes around our tummy, our sides, and our back. So a combination of our pelvic floor muscles and this corset around our waist make up our core muscles. So our core muscles are our postural muscles. So they're the muscles that they help us to do things that we don't really take any notice of, like sitting, standing, moving without any pain or imbalances. So there are certain things that can affect our core muscles. Probably the better known one or the better thought of one is pregnancy and childbirth. So when you carry a pregnancy, tummy muscles get expanded. So that transverse abdominis really has to expand, and it can often cause, if these are our tummy muscles in the front, it can often cause a diastasis recti. Generally, everyone will get some form of a little diastasis recti where the muscles actually separate. Also, when you think of pregnancy and that lovely little baby that you're carrying around, yeah, they put a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. So pelvic floor is doing an awful lot of work. Then when it comes to childbirth, obviously a vaginal delivery will affect the pelvic floor muscles, but that's not to say anyone who has had a C-section doesn't go through the same bothers as well, because pregnancy in itself is really, really taxing on the body. There are other things that can affect your pelvic floor, and that's things like, regardless of childbirth or pregnancy or anything like that, your pelvic floor muscles can actually be too tight, and that can happen after childbirth as well, too tight or too weak. And that can really affect them. Also, things like injury and illness can affect pelvic floor muscles as well. So this is for absolutely everybody. So when we talk about engaging the core muscles, first and foremost, we kind of need to know where they are. So one of the kind of like a little exercise for finding them is when you're going to the bathroom, so when you're doing a wee, try and stop yourself mid-flow. Now, this is not something that you should be doing on a regular basis. This is not a training form for your pelvic floor muscles. This is simply a little exercise to try and find them. Because if you do that regularly, that actually affects them negatively. So don't do that regularly, just to try and find them. So they're the muscles that you'd use to stop yourself going to the bathroom. Another thing you can do is to find our transverse abdominis, so the corset of muscle that wraps around your waist. It's not actually, I'm going to pull myself up here, or core muscles are not the muscles on the outside that we can see. They're actually, we have our body fat, we have our six-pack muscles, and then we have our core muscles underneath. So they're the deepest layer of muscles that we have. But if you were to sit, this is a bit random, I didn't think you'd be doing this. If you find your little hip bones to the front, and you actually hook your fingers inside them and kind of in behind them, and really press really, really hard. I want you to take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, strong breath out to your mouth, we're trying to feel a little push against our fingertips. So that's our transverse abdominis starting to kick in. So they're the two, our pelvic floor and our transverse abdominis, we call it corset, is what we're trying to activate when I would say fire up or engage your core muscles. What's really important is that with our core muscles, we kind of work from the bottom up. So in Pilates, we use a lovely image of zipping on a pair of jeans that are one size too small. So if you can imagine, pelvic floor muscles are literally on the floor, and you're putting on a pair of jeans that are one size too small, they're a little bit snug, they're a little bit tight, and they take a little bit of work to get on. But imagine you're pulling them up, you have a little zip at the bottom of your pubic bone, and you're going to zip up those jeans. And that zipping action is the sensation of lifting your pelvic floor muscles. And then when you buckle your jeans, remember they're a size too small, so they're a little bit snug, that's the action of switching on our corset muscles or TA muscles. And the whole idea is that we hold those snug pair of jeans on while we're doing any of our exercises. And they're the kind of muscles that it's kind of hard not to find them as such, but because we can't see them, it's very hard to visualize them and where they are. You know, if I talk about a bicycle, you can say, yeah, I can literally feel it, I can see it, I can touch it. But it's very hard when these are the deepest layer of muscles that we have. So first of all, try and find them by stopping mid-flow, also by doing that lovely breathing exercise to find our corset muscles. And another thing you can do is put your thumb, imagine it's almost like a lollipop, thumb in the mouth, and I want you to literally suck your cheeks in, suck your thumb, and feel that sensation of pelvic floor muscles again lifting. So that's what I mean when I say fire the core muscles or to engage them. Main thing is two things that I'm going to mention is we want to make sure that we're not squeezing our glute muscles or squeezing our bum muscles when instead we're trying to activate our pelvic floor muscles. So think that lift comes from the front rather than behind. Second thing is it's not about pulling your belly button aggressively to your spine. What happens there is we pull it in, it actually pushes pelvic floor muscles down, which is contrary to what we're trying to achieve. So always think when it comes to pelvic floor muscles and core muscles, we're trying to lift and draw in from the bottom up. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay guys, we're nearly there. We're down to the last two questions, and they were kind of two more kind of slightly personal ones, so I said I'd leave them till the end. So the question was, what is your typical daily exercise regime and what does it take to maintain your fitness and flexibility? So thank you for the question. Yeah, so when it comes to my own fitness regime, basically what you see is what you get. So at the moment I have the 5 online classes. So we have like lower body session on a Monday, upper and abs on a Wednesday, full body strength on a Wednesday night, Pilates on a Thursday, and our cardio session on a Friday. And that is my training. I don't do any extra than that. I do walk. But unfortunately, I don't walk every day, but now that the days are getting longer, I know that when I say the two of us, me and my husband, we'll both be able to get out generally just for a little while it was dark and things like that. It was kind of only one of us getting out each day. But yeah, that's my training regime. I have done a lot of different types of training over the years. So I have done everything. So say in October before the studio closed for this long lockdown, I would have been doing 13-14 hours of classes per week. So that would have been my training. Again, didn't do any extra outside of it. And I've done everything up to, I think at my peak when I started, I was doing, every class was 60 minutes. I had 23 hours of classes. I did every single solitary second of those classes. And I was playing football and camogie at the same time. So I was both super fit and super fat. It was awful. It was great, but I could never, and I would not recommend it to anybody to do that. So yes, I think that's why when it comes to rest and recovery, I feel quite passionate about it. At the moment, I suppose the training that I'm doing at the moment is the least amount of training I have done in 12 years, probably. And I feel my best. I feel my absolute best. I am pumped for every single class, and that's not even putting it on, pumped. Absolutely pumped for every single class because I feel energized. I feel ready to take it on. I've noticed for the first time in 10-12 years, my weights, I've been able to increase them, and I feel really, really good. I haven't been sick, I haven't been injured, bar a little funny shoulder, but that I'm blamed for you for that, not the weights. So yeah, that's like, that sounds terrible. I don't actually do anything outside of what I'm doing right now. The only other stuff that I do is a little bit of playtime after work, which is kind of, I put up some videos sometimes of like primal movements and kind of fun stuff like that. And that's just because I'm really interested in it and I kind of want to do a little bit more of it. And that is, yeah, I think that's really, really cool. But yeah, at the moment, what you see is what you get, guys. So yeah, that is why when it comes to, for me, my training revolves basically what I'm doing at work. So yeah, I know that my training will change again. But yeah, at the moment I'm really enjoying just what I'm doing now. Okay, so this is the last question that came in. I got it at the start of the week, and to say it has stumped me would be an understatement. But the question was, if you weren't a PT or gym owner, what would you be? So I have been thinking about this all week, and I couldn't come up with an answer. So this is a terrible question, or a terrible answer to a great question. I really don't know. Maybe that's a good thing, because I can't see myself doing something other than in the role that I'm doing now. I think the great thing about this industry is that there's so many avenues that can be taken from it, which I think is really, really great. I do genuinely feel I would have to be doing something where I was dealing with people or working with people. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. So what I would actually love to hear is, what do you think I could do if I wasn't doing this? Because this was never the plan. This was never ever the plan. I studied sport and exercise science in college. The reason I really, really wanted to do that, but I originally, a year or two beforehand, before starting college, I was like, yeah, PE teacher, definitely. That's what I want to do. Until I did work experience in my old primary school for a week, and I realised I couldn't actually speak in front of people. I was so, like, I'm not talking like so nervous, I'm talking unable, so sick to my stomach of having, I remember the day I had to read a story to the junior infants, and I shook the whole way through because I was so scared and so nervous and just felt so ill. So I quickly took PE teaching off my CO and done sport and exercise science. But what happens when you finish college and somebody offers you a job and you're broke? You take it. So I actually got offered a job in a personal training studio. So that's how I started doing this. And my intention was only ever to stay there just a small while, gather a few books and actually head away traveling again. But I loved it. I really, really loved it. And I was like, okay, this could be something. And then as I was there a few years and kind of, I loved what I was doing and kind of had an idea for the way I wanted to do it. And that's how obviously Max Fitness was born. So I don't know much different to what I'm doing now. I did have a little sabbatical in between that particular job and Max Fitness, where I worked in an office setting. How can I say it? I worked in Leia Healthcare for 9 months. So that was my first ever office setting, and it's actually like the biggest setting I've ever worked in, and it was so much fun. Like, I loved working with the people that I worked with. I loved all my teammates. I loved the buzz that was in the office. I sucked at the job because, like, every time the headphone would go off for a call coming in, I would get the sweats, and it was genuinely because I couldn't tell who was on the other side of the phone. So that's what I love, the idea of working directly with people. I just love the buzz that you get of meeting them, of being able to gauge their reactions, seeing their emotions, everything like that. So I think if I were to do something different, it would definitely have to incorporate that. Definitely. I'm not a woman for the phone work. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I don't know. If you have any ideas of what I would be any good at, I would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, and I think, like I said, the great thing about doing this kind of job is that there is different avenues and aspects to it, and it is constantly evolving and changing. Or should I say, I'm constantly evolving and changing as well, which is great. And kind of learning a little bit more about myself every time. So really, really good. So it's actually kind of one of the reasons I've done the Q&A today. Not to tell you that I don't know what I want to be in 10 years time, but like, one of the big things I have always struggled with, other than public speaking, is actually literally self-confidence. So I struggle with things like this. So speaking about topics that I know I can talk about, but I struggle to speak about them. So that's why this is like a little exercise to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something from it. And if you have, let me know. And if you have any other questions and queries, as I always say, shoot me a message. That's what I'm here for. But guys, thank you so much, not just for listening, but for also all your support and your friendship and everything over the past few months and over the past few years. And I am forever grateful. So thank you so much, guys, and have a lovely weekend.